Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Fro Wrestling Video Podcast. I'm doing my best Mick Foley impersonation. I don't think I've worn this thing since 7th grade, but today we're going to get to the Superstar Shakeup, and I am going to give you my picks for who I think should be moving around from Raw to SmackDown and vice versa. There's a lot going on, a lot of conversation. We've heard about Roman Reigns and AJ Styles and all those change-ups and mix-ups. I'm not going to address the AJ Styles Roman Reigns issue. I'm going to go for things that I think, from a booking sense, would make a lot of opportunity happen for the bookers and the creative teams in World Wrestling Entertainment. I want to see them have an opportunity to really put together a product over the next year that can really wow people and can provide some excitement where in some situations we've really been lacking lately. So we're going to start off with the first trade, and I know this is going to sound a little bizarre because I'm not doing a one-for-one trade. I'm doing this from a booking sense. Let's face it, whether it's singles, tag team, six-man tag, whatever, if it's a group that's together or a single who's out there, it's match to match. You're transferring matches, not numbers of wrestlers. So, that being said, my first trade, going to Raw from SmackDown, Dean Ambrose, who I fully expect to lose the Intercontinental Championship at Backlash. And in the past, when a wrestler has been drafted to a different brand, they've been allowed to finish out any of their contracted matches that had already been announced. Well, Dean Ambrose has already been announced to defend the Intercontinental Championship at Backlash against Baron Corbin. I fully expect him to lose the championship there, and then he would be free to go to Raw. In exchange for Dean Ambrose going to SmackDown, 3 for 1, The New Day. The New Day needs a new gimmick, and they need a new location. They don't need a new gimmick, but they need a new set of opportunity. They've done everything you could possibly do on Raw. Over 440 days with the Tag Team Championship. You've beaten everybody on the brand. At this point, I don't want to start seeing you job out to the Revival like we saw on Raw this past week. I want to see them stay at the top of the card. They're the most entertaining act potentially in the entire company. So they should not be getting jobbed out to anybody. Move them to SmackDown where they can get a fresh start. Target some new tag team championships they have not had before, and give them an opportunity to really shine in matches with the Usos, matches with American Alpha, the opportunity to bolster the SmackDown roster now that the Revival came to Raw and bolstered Raws. This is not going to be a huge loss for Raw. It would be something where you would be maximizing talents on both shows between Ambrose and between the New Day. Moving on to the next one, again, it's a convoluted way to get there, but follow me on this string of events. One, Chris Jericho is leaving, so I'm not worried about shifting him to a brand right now. When he leaves, he'll be going on tour with Fozzy all summer. He will be back at the end of the summer, and when he comes back, I would have him return to the SmackDown brand. And the reason I would do that is because of this next trade. I would trade Aiden English, formerly of the Vaudevillains. Now that Simon Gotch is gone and you don't have something firmly entrenched for Aiden English, move him to the Raw roster to compete in the 205 Live show and the Cruiserweight division. It gives a legitimate competitor to Neville and to Austin Aries and all the premium talents there. And in the meantime, it gives him a real push without having to put a guy who looks like he belongs on the 205 roster against these monsters you see on SmackDown and on Raw. And the flip side, the one that I would trade for him, going to SmackDown, The Big Show. Now here, follow me on this. Over the summer, you're going to have Baron Corbin as your new Intercontinental Champion. He's a beast. He's a monster. He needs somebody to really put him over who is a threat to a world title, and that could be The Big Show. Put The Big Show in there. Have him run a program with Baron Corbin through the summer. And here is where the Chris Jericho tie-in comes in. At the end of the summer, when Chris Jericho comes back, debut him on the SmackDown roster and reform Jericho. Jericho would be a great addition to the tag team division. It would give the Big Show one last run before he retires, doing something of value and of substance where they could really contribute to the brand. Put them in the ring with people like the New Day. Put them in with the American Alpha, with the Usos. Heck, put them in there with the Ascension. I don't care who you put them in there with. That adds legitimacy to the tag team division on SmackDown, which has sorely been lacking for the better part of a year now. Once you get that trade done, the next one is probably my favorite. Sami Zayn goes to SmackDown in exchange for Luke Harper, formerly of the Wyatt family. Luke Harper has been completely underappreciated on SmackDown. He's kind of lost in the shuffle. He doesn't have a full place there. Whereas on Raw, you can really push him. There are people you can put him against who I don't expect him to be world champion, but I wouldn't mind seeing Luke Harper and Brock Lesnar. I wouldn't mind seeing Luke Harper and Luke Harper against people like Samoa Joe, people like Kevin Owens. So do that. Let's move Luke Harper somewhere where he can have some screen time and exposure. You got a 3-hour Raw you got to fill, and you got a talent like Luke Harper who's being wasted. Not to mention, there is an opportunity for that wonderful match of Luke Harper against Braun Strowman, which none of us have gotten the opportunity to see and would make for an amazing match. On the flip side of that trade, Sami Zayn, he's in that mid-up card status. He doesn't have a place in the World Championship picture. He's already held the United States title. There's nothing left for him to do except maybe put him in a tag team, but that's wasting his talent. If you put him on SmackDown, he could run programs with Dolph Ziggler, The Miz, AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura. He could have programs with anybody on the show, and because of the size and the mass of the wrestlers you have on SmackDown, they accommodate his style a great way. So I would move Sami Zayn to SmackDown in exchange for Luke Harper. Make that happen. Let's get some excitement on both brands using those two guys who are both underappreciated. In addition, I would do some more call-ups. Not a lot, because I don't want to take everything out of the cupboard on NXT, but I think there are two that would be critical to the success of both the blue and the red brands going forward. One, going to Raw to fortify the women's division. Bring up Asuka. Asuka is dying. That match with Nia Jax is just waiting to happen. Asuka, the longest running NXT Women's Champion in history. Nia Jax, the unstoppable, unbeatable force in the women's division. Put the two in the ring, it should be poetry in motion. Asuka has nothing left to do in NXT. And having somebody come in and defeat her for the NXT Women's Championship doesn't make a lot of sense when you consider all the people she's bulldozed through. In this situation, you could have her drafted to Raw, not lose the NXT Women's Championship, and have Nia Jax show up on NXT television, costing her the championship, which would be a great segue into their feud on Raw. On the flip side, for SmackDown, there's been conversations a lot lately. We know he's coming at some point. Elias Sampson goes to SmackDown and makes an impact, helping bolster the mid-card. People like Apollo Crews, Mojo Rawley, Kalisto, people like that who really need some more talent to work with, he would provide that for them. He would be able to get some interesting matches going on that we have not seen before and that mainstream wrestling fans would really get into for the mid-card. And finally, the last one has been talked about by a lot of people. I don't know that anybody's really justified why. Alexa Bliss being traded to Raw, bolster the women's division, create an instant challenger for Bayley, a challenger for Sasha Banks, and somewhat of a partner, a cohort, a confidant for Emma, now that she's re-debuted on the brand. And in the process, you could trade her for Charlotte. Charlotte going to SmackDown would provide new challengers for people like Becky Lynch, Naomi. She has a fresh feel in SmackDown. She's done everything there is to do on Raw except for Nia Jax, and it does not look like WWE's willing to pull the trigger on that feud. Since that's the case, let's put her in a situation where she can maximize her television time. Put her on SmackDown. They have an emphasis on their women's division. It's actually, in a lot of ways, better than Raw's, because Raw's got the same 4 women they push, and they bury the rest of them. You know, this way you can change up who Raw pushes, change up who SmackDown pushes. Charlotte has already won the Women's Championship multiple times on Raw. Now it's time for her to win the Women's Championship on SmackDown. So that is my superstar shakeup pairings and trades that I would do, provided I was a GM for one of these two companies. I think right now SmackDown is probably the better brand as far as in-ring action. Raw, with the extra hour, they have a lot more content, but you notice on Raw, you got a lot of talk time. I complain about this all the time on the podcast. This gives you some new stars and some new matches that can fill some of that talk time and get us back to what we actually tune in for: the wrestling, the action, the whole purpose of World Wrestling Entertainment. So that's all the time we have for this podcast episode, video podcast episode. Be sure to check with our audio versions for any other quick updates, quick news stories, things that come out. If you are looking for more wrestling news and rumors, go to www.tsjsports.com/WWE. We have tons of articles put up there about the world of wrestling and sports in general. If you're just a sports junkie, go there, check it out. We got all kinds of stuff for you. And until next time, everybody, take care. Have a great night.